1983. The world was closer to nuclear war than anyone knew. Radar screens were lit. Protocols were active. No leaders were on the phone. Then a message arrived. It wasn't supposed to. It wasn't read by a president or a general. It was read by someone you've never heard of. And because of that, history went in a different direction. The message wasn't classified, it wasn't urgent, and it wasn't supposed to matter. It was a routine status update, one of thousands sent every single day, logged, filed, forgotten. But one small thing was wrong. A single character, one routing code. The message went somewhere it was never meant to go. It wasn't read by a general or a president. It was read by someone you've never heard of. His job wasn't to make decisions. It was to follow procedure. So he did. When the message didn't arrive, nothing reacted. No alarm sounded. No protocol was accelerated. No one felt authorized to move faster than the system allowed. And that's how large organizations are designed to work. They don't respond to possibilities. They respond to confirmations. Without confirmation, every action becomes a risk. So a report stayed in draft form. A briefing remained unscheduled. A phone call was postponed until morning. Not because anyone decided to wait, but because waiting was the default. In complex systems, inaction doesn't feel dangerous. It feels responsible. That night, dozens of people did exactly what they were trained to do. They avoided overreacting. They avoided assumptions. And by doing so, they unknowingly held the world in place. Somewhere else, in another building. People were watching the clock. They weren't waiting for dramatic news. They weren't expecting a crisis. They were waiting for a routine signal. The kind of message that simply confirms everything is unfolding as predicted. When it didn't arrive, it created a gap. Not a warning, not a threat, just a gap. And gaps are uncomfortable. They force institutions to choose between acting on uncertainty or absorbing it. That night, uncertainty was absorbed, because acting without confirmation could have been misread, and misinterpretation in that moment carried its own risks. So they waited. Minutes passed, then more minutes. History is built around events, moments we can point to, dates we can circle, decisions someone can be blamed for or praised for. But what happened that night didn't leave a mark like that. There was no single decision, no dramatic reversal, no clear turning point. There was only a sequence of things that never occurred, a call that wasn't placed, an alert that wasn't raised, a response that stayed hypothetical. As hours passed, the urgency dissolved. What could have been interpreted as escalation was quietly reclassified as uncertainty. And uncertainty, once it lasts long enough, stops demanding action. By morning, the moment had passed. Nothing had happened. And because nothing had happened, no one realized how close something else had come to taking its place. The next day, there were no headlines, no breaking news, no emergency briefings, no speeches explaining what had been avoided. Newspapers printed what they had already planned. Markets opened on schedule. Morning radio talked about traffic and weather. Somewhere in official archives, reports were filed, marked as routine, logged, stored. No one was told how close the system had come to reacting, because the system never admitted it had hesitated. From the outside, nothing had changed. But inside the machinery of power, something subtle had shifted. Not fear, not relief, caution. A quiet awareness that certainty could fail, and that restraint had its own consequences. In the days that followed, nothing was announced. There were no statements, no briefings, no acknowledgement that anything unusual had occurred. But small adjustments were made. Checklists gained extra steps. Thresholds were quietly redefined. Phrases like, "wait for confirmation," slowly replaced, "respond immediately." No one called it a lesson. Lessons imply failure, and failure had been avoided. This moment was recorded as stability, as control, as proof that the system worked. But somewhere between procedure and instinct, a new behavior settled in. Hesitation was no longer a flaw. It became an option, and options, once they exist, tend to be used. The Cold War didn't end that night. Not officially, not publicly, not in any document you can point to. But something did shift. From that moment on, escalation became harder, not impossible, just slower. Signals were questioned. Assumptions were double-checked. Silence was no longer treated as failure. It became a variable. Over time, that variable mattered. Doctrines softened, timelines stretched, reactions gained friction, and friction changes outcomes. When the late 80s arrived, the world didn't suddenly choose peace. It simply found fewer reasons to rush toward catastrophe. We like to believe history moves because someone decides it should. A leader speaks, a button is pressed, a moment is declared important. But sometimes, history shifts for quieter reasons. Because a message arrives late, because a signal is misrouted, because a person with no title pauses. This isn't the story of a hero or a villain. It's the story of a system that avoided disaster by accident, and of a world that continued, unaware that it had just taken a different path. Not all turning points announce themselves. Some pass silently and are only visible in the direction history takes afterward. What happened that night feels exceptional, but it isn't unique. History is full of moments where outcomes were shaped not by intention, but by timing, by delays, by misunderstandings that didn't escalate, by people following procedure just closely enough or just loosely enough to prevent something irreversible. These moments rarely become stories. They leave no monuments, no anniversaries, because nothing happened. But over decades, these non-events accumulate. They bend trajectories, they narrow probabilities, they quietly influence which futures remain possible, and which ones disappear without ever being noticed. History doesn't only move forward through action. Sometimes it advances by restraint.
Like this video, turn on notifications, and subscribe for more.